Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Mums Unedited. We are back to talk about all things mums and professionals and mental health and teenagers. And my name is Laura. I'm a psychotherapist and the founder of Parentology, and I'm with the lovely Naomi.
Well, I'm Naomi. I am the emotional master expert for neurodiverse mums and the double digit daughters.
I
And
love
the owner, I'm the owner of Mums Like Up.
Mums like us. So we'll put all the links in the comments or the footnotes to this, hence why it's episode 2 and it's unedited, because this is all new, but we want to get as much information out to the parents who are listening that we possibly can. And in a very quick little nutshell, Parentology is all around working with parents and teenagers and mental health. And Mums Like Us is working with parents who are neurodivergent, or their children are neurodivergent, or everyone is neurodivergent in the household.
Yeah. So Mums Like Us is mainly working with mums and daughters. However, I am open to working with dads and sons as well. I'm not discriminatory like that, but my branding is for mums and daughters because I'm a mum of a daughter. So it just made sense for me like that.
Brilliant. We've just done episode 1, hence why we're still looking the same, because we've just paused and just re-recorded the next lot. But the first episode is all about our background, a little bit about who we are and what the businesses that we are running are trying to do. My background is all in mental health and education and other areas, and Naomi was a wonderful social worker.
I was indeed. And my experience and knowledge around neurodiversity is insane. So that's my passion and that's my geek zone. So today we were thinking about talking over the constraints that some services have and actually what that means for parents and for kids, and where we can filter in to cover bridge that gap that there is between the two services, between statutory services and private services, and give you some information and some love.
Some lot. So, like we were saying, so just off as we were just pausing after the first episode, Naomi, you were talking about your social work background and actually the constraints, because the frustration I hear from parents is the services just aren't there, or when they are there, they're not fit for purpose. And we started talking about education and stuff, and then you came in with your background of social work, and actually you're really restrained or restricted in what you can do or what you could when you were a social worker.
Yeah, so as a social worker, we would have I was a children and family social worker, and I worked in the team that did the bulk of the work. So with social care, you have the MASH team, which is like where people refer into, they make the decision as to whether or not it needs to be assessed. So then it will go to the assessment team, and then they decide whether or not a service is needed. And then it would go to the long-term team. Who would do the plan? So it'd be a child in need plan, which is under Section 17 of the Children Act, or a child protection plan, which is under Section 47 of the Children Act. If you want to know anything about the legislation side of things and stuff, please let me know. And I'm happy to talk about that because I can talk about it all day long. But anyway, so I would do the work with parents under them two parts of legislation. And there was we have statutory things that we needed to achieve. And that would be that the child needed to be seen every 2 weeks. But that was really difficult to do because when you've got a caseload of 30 kids, and I'm talking 30 children, like it's a lot of kids. So when you've got a caseload of 30 children and you're having to see every single one of them over a 2-week period, and actually some of them need a lot more from you than others. But in with that, you're writing reports, you're attending meetings, you're attending multidisciplinary reviews, you're attending appointments with parents and supporting them, you're making referrals, but you're also been having to write reports for everything, you're writing the minutes for everything, and every single conversation that you have, telephone, email, face-to-face, whatever, it has to be recorded. So you're having to then put all of that in the system. The part of the team that I worked in was also the team that dealt with all the court work as well, which was my area of expertise. That's where I spent most of my time within the court team. But when you then add that into the mix, you're then writing all the normal stuff, you're doing all the normal stuff, but then you're adding in that you're having to write reports for call, you're having to write care plans, you're having to write statements, you're having to attend call. And you don't go to call for a time and you see, you go to court for a time and you sit there all day talking to solicitors, talking to parents, trying to get things arranged, and then you go in and see the judge. So it's a whole day in court when it's just one case. And I say case, and I really hate that because it sounds so impersonal, but that's kind of how it's referred to service users. So for me as a social worker, all my reporting and all my work, written work, was done outside of working hours because I couldn't fit everything into a day. Now, I know that a lot of local authorities try to reduce the amount of people that social workers are working with. A lot of social work, not of authorities try to keep it at 15, but even that, 15 children and families that are in need, it's really, really hard to give all of them the time, the energy, and the effort that you need. Especially when if you've got a sibling group of 3, each of them children have got different needs. Each of them children is one service user on their own. So it might come under a family, but they are still their own individual needs. So you then have to multiply your time for that family between the 3 children and then between the adults as well. And if you've got a mum and a dad who are separated and they've both got partners and then partners have got children, that's still all focused into that one family. So it gets complicated. So when people talk about social workers not doing their job properly, the pressure and the stress is insane. The red tape is unreal. The amount of finances is a complete diabolical state. You have to request, if you want to refer to a service, you have to request financial support for that. And that has to go from you to your manager to the service manager. The service manager then has to send it over to the team that deals with it. And it's not as simple as what we can do right now. If someone comes and says, I've got a problem with XYZ with my child, can you help me? And we go, right, this is what we're going to do. There isn't all of that constraint that's attached to it. And it's really, really difficult when you're working in a local authority where it's a big area, because when you're traveling from one side to the other, you're losing an hour a day driving.
Possibly. Oh, sorry, am I echoing?
No, you're good.
Sorry if everyone can hear me echoing. How on earth did you cope with it though? If you've got a caseload that big, and then like you're saying, you're in court all day, you are driving here, there, and everywhere. You're then seeing 10 people who are in a family. Like, how did you do that?
A lot of stress. A lot of stress. And for social workers burn out so quickly, and people don't stay in the job for very long and that's why you have social workers leading and you don't have a consistent social worker because it gets too much. And there's 2 different, while I was a social worker, I think it's been locked down a little bit now, but you would have agency social workers and then you would have permanent social workers. And the reason why a lot of people didn't say permanent was because they just didn't, the wages, if I'm honest, didn't cover the amount of hours that you was working. So even as an agency social worker, people saw that I was earning really good money, but actually if you look at the hours I was working, I was earning less than minimum wage because actually I was working evenings and weekends. There would be days that I would go into court and the judge would order an update on what's been going on, and I would have to have that the next day. But 9 o'clock the next morning, they would need it for. So I'd be up all night writing the updates or the report or whatever it is that was needed for call, and then having to do the other work on top. Being a mum of 4 children, it was a lot. I mean, it took a lot from me. I've done it for 13 years, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. I loved it, and I loved when the outcomes were good for the children and the outcomes were good for families. Wasn't always together, but it was when I saw that somebody's life was improved. That was the reason why I was doing it, to make sure that their voice and they had the ability to be able to make the changes they needed with the right support around them. So that was really rewarding for me, and that's why I stayed in it so long. But it is a really difficult career to be in because you've got so many people that you have to answer to, not just in the sense of the families that you're working for. You have the schools, you have the health team, you have the managers, you have the IROs, which are the independent viewing officers. And then you have, if like I said, you've got court involved, you've got solicitors and barristers and judges, and there is just so many people involved that you have to split yourself between everybody all the time. And there's only so many hours in a day. You can only spin on any plates. And like I say, when you're traveling on top of that, it makes it even more difficult. I mean, I have children that work up north. So I would have to go from where I am all the way up north. So I would be driving for 4 hours. During that 4 hours, I used to take a dictaphone with me and talk in my case notes and things like that, because that was a way of me saving time to be able to then utilize that time properly to spend with the children that I was working with. But it wasn't always as simple as that. So yeah, social workers miss things, and they miss things because they are so overrun, and it gets to a point where you get desensitized. And I think that's when people need to walk away from the job, because when you're desensitized and it just becomes normal, there's stuff that you're dealing with day to day, and there's no empathy or love and support behind what you're doing, then it's time to leave their career, because that's when things start to go wrong, and when the families and the children are not given the best that they possibly can get from you. I left because of my health, because of my endometriosis. It was getting too much. I was in a lot of brain fog, so I couldn't think properly and I couldn't process properly. And then Lily was having her own troubles, so it just made sense for me to step away at that time.
It's saying though, it's so exhausting in terms of what you had to cope with. And I work with parents who are in the social service system, and they are so frustrated because they're not getting the services they need. But just when you've just said that in a nutshell about what you were experiencing, it's almost like a no-win situation, because you can't work any harder, but the parents still need the services and the support that they're getting. And now I'm only coming from where I've come from, the parents. There's not a good reputation with social workers, and they don't like, not you personally, I'm sure they would have loved you, but their social workers aren't a friend to them, aren't someone that they trust. And when you can see how busy you are, it just blows my mind, especially when they're on child protection and you have got to be on your game. The case review waiting to happen, that there's going to be a serious case review, because all it takes is you to miss out one thing, and then we've got a real serious thing going on. That must be playing on your mind, used to play on your mind all the time.
Yeah, it was. And the things that, for me as a social worker, and I can't talk about other social workers because I'm not them, but for me as a social worker, each child, each family that I worked with, I saw them as part of my family. And I don't mean that from overstepping boundaries. I mean from the way that I would treat them, the respect that I would give them, and the love and the care that I would give them. So every child was an extension of my family. And a lot of the parents were as well, because I built rapport with them. And some of them were good, some of them were not good. But I still, even if the relationship wasn't good, I would still put in the effort, because they deserved that. And I always saw it that I was walking into somebody's life. So I was honest to be allowed into their story, because that's what it was. I was being brought into their story to make a little bit of a difference for them. But it just, all the time, I was always worried. I didn't sleep really that well, especially when there was things that were going on that were really heightened. I would be panicking. Going on holiday was, and this is one of the things why social workers found out, is don't go on holiday very often. Because when you do, things happen and somebody else has to deal with it. And when they're dealing with it, it's just a whole other thing. Then it's a worry. So I remember back in 2017, I went to Turkey with my kids, and one of my friends was working at the local authority I was working at, and a message. And I was like, how is this family? And I was like, not talking to you. And I just want to leave. I was like, no, I know, because I left it where it was bubbling, and I can't rest and switch up until I know that everything's okay. And they was like, no, everything's not okay, but it's been dealt with. You need to just switch off, because you're not going to be able to give them the best of you when you come back. So for the first sort of 5 days, that 2-week holiday, I was constantly thinking about, have they done this? So I'm messaging my manager and messaging my colleagues saying, look, I know you're dealing with this for me right now. Have you done this? Do you remember that this is what's going on for them? Do you that? And it's just constant, like a constant download of information that's going on because it's all in your head. And then you're like, did I write that up? Did I put that down? Did I note that properly? So there is so much that goes on with social workers, and I know why they get stressed because I used to get stressed. And overwhelm is like just crazy. But also on the back of that there is not enough support services out there for parents, and especially for targeted areas of need. So things like neurodiversity or mental health. Like we talk about CAMS, and CAMS gets a really bad rap, but when you are actually able to get in and work with CAMS, they do amazing work. But it's
I think we're in the same boat, isn't it? Because the CAMS workers that I know are exactly like you. Their caseloads are huge, and they don't have the time, not necessarily the experience or the ability. They just don't have the time, and that's where it all comes falling down. Is that you've got parents that I'm working with that are waiting for the kids are going into A&E in crisis, and they're not having an appointment for 2 weeks with the crisis team. And that's not because the crisis team are rubbish. It's because there's no time in the day. They've got all these other ones. And of course, then you've got a triage system with the ones that are really at the higher level are jumping the queue. So then parents start to feel ignored and let down, which when you know about mental health is one of the biggest reasons mental health is there, is because we feel unheard, not listened to, and insignificant. And that can bring up a lot of trauma, a lot of triggers for a lot of people. But, when we're talking about CAMS, when you're talking about social workers, I'm thinking CAMS are probably exactly the same. And then we get into the bigger problem, don't we, about the whole services that are in this country. Well, and then we just move on to education as well, because they're exactly the same, because they don't have capacity. So we're very good, I think, at blaming the individuals. And don't get me wrong, I do know that there are teachers out there that cause a lot of problems. There are workers out there that cause a lot more problems and they're not fit for purpose. But likewise, I'm pretty sure the retention of staff is near on impossible. So services have to retain the staff they have, and the cycle continues. But there's just not enough time in the day. And there's just not many people needing these services.
I just think, like I was saying to you about in our little gap bit before, that if we think about it from this perspective, that if you're a parent who is on the brink of overwhelm and you've got a child who is in overwhelm, and that overwhelm is spiraling and escalating, and then that child is in explosive mode, they then become into explosive mode. That energy, and we feed off of each other's energy. Some people might not be woo-woo, I'm really woo-woo, but regardless, we feed off of each other's energy. Kids pick up with parents' emotions or the adults around them's emotions. So if you're a teacher who goes into a classroom of 30 kids, but you've had a really shit morning at home with your own kid who's been an absolute arse, who just won't do anything that you've asked, and there's been a massive blowout at home, you carry that emotion into the classroom. As much as a worker, you try not to bring your personal into your professional, but in all reality, sorry, but there is not many people in this world that I know could not put in some entity or another. You then walk into a classroom with 30 kids, and 2 of them 30 kids are in overwhelm. Everyone's in overwhelm. If there are 2 kids that are in overwhelm, their energy is feeding into the rest of the class. You're in overwhelm. So them 30 kids overwhelm is feeding into your overwhelm, and your overwhelm is feeding into that 30 kids overwhelm. Then you've got a classroom that's disrupted. Nobody's regulated. Nobody's able to actually concentrate and do the work. And then that's when we have behaviours happening in classrooms, because children are just not able to ground themselves and bring themselves into a place where they can learn and deal with education. And then you add into the mix of anything with, like you say, mental health challenges, or if there's neurodivergency that is unrecognised or unsupported. We then have children that are seen as bad kids or disruptive children, or they've got a negative influence on other people. There's all the names that they get called. When actually, if we scare that fact and we had 10 kids in a classroom to one adult, I could guarantee there would be a whole difference of environment for everybody involved. And if there was more understanding around emotional regulation, and that being the primary thing when we go into any service, is that the emotional regulation of everybody involved needs to be on point before anything is done. So before any work is done, is to check the emotional regulation of everybody. Because like I say, if you're not emotionally regulated, that's going to then just transpire across everybody. Yeah, isn't it?
I wonder if we need to explain what emotional regulation is, because we use that word a lot, and it's about understanding what your emotions are. Because being emotionally regulated, a lot of, I imagine some of our parents are going to be brand new to this whole forum because they've been in these services and they've come across us to explain what emotional regulation means. I mean, how would you describe it?
Emotional regulation is being able to understand your emotion and please know that there is a difference between emotions and feelings. And this is something I hear a lot. But when you're trying to regulate your emotions, it means being able to recognize them, to know where they are in your body, know what it is that's bringing that emotion up, what it is that you can do to manage that emotion, and not just in the here and now, but actually processing it after the fact. Because if we don't process emotions, we store emotional trauma in our bodies, which then triggers the next episode when things are not dealt with. So emotional regulation in a nutshell is when you are able to understand your emotions and walk through them in a way that is, I don't want to say calm, because emotions are not calm, but in a way that you're able to remain calm and you're able to remain regulated. And I don't mean, when I say remain calm and regulated, I don't mean that you've got a smile on your face, but inside you're looking at. Do you know what I mean? It's about your whole nervous system being in a calm state where you're not in fight or freeze. You're actually in flow, and you're able to move through things in a way that's going to be able to support you and those around you, children, adults, whatever, moving forward. How would you explain it?
Well, I would explain it as a therapist in a different, in very similar ways, but in a different, with a different twist to it. So when you talk about the fight and flight response, flight, fight, freeze, flop, and that's the routine that we would go. So, for example, if I'm being attacked or someone's chasing me with a knife, first thing I'm going to do is run away. I'm going to fly. Next thing I'm going to do is fight. If I can't fly, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight them. God knows I would do that. I would try and have a fight. If I can't fight, then I'm going to freeze. And we see that a lot in assaults, especially sexual assaults, you freeze. And if I can't do that, then I'm going to flop and play dead. So that's when you think, the first thing that comes to my mind is like those poor gun shootings in America where you have to play dead in school. So they're your systems. Now that's your sympathetic nervous system kicking in, and that's what you're talking about. That dysregulation is because your fight and flight response is in full action. So what we need to do, our bodies are not designed to be in the fight and flight for more than sort of 5 to 10 minutes maximum before it starts to burn out and feel exhausted. But we get used to it. So when you're used to being in those high situations, social work or teachers or CAMS, or you're dealing with children that are really hard work at home, just get used to it. And that's where you start getting all these, like the emotional response and the dysregulation. The body starts to hold it. And there's a lot of illnesses out there. Fibromyalgia is very much linked to trauma holding and emotion response. Is we need to try and engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what we call the rest and digest, which is what most mammals should be in majority of the time, is your rest and digest. So when you talk about being calm, in a mental health term, in the therapy room, we would talk about that being aware. So you would be aware. So what it is I'll put a link to it. There's a feelings wheel, lots of coloured wheels. And if people have worked with me, they would see the feelings wheel because I bang on about it all the time. Having the one phrase, I'm pointing at you, Naomi. Don't know why I'm pointing at you. One phrase is, I feel, put the feeling in, I need, and then put a need in. So when we talk about feelings and emotions and stuff, yes, there's a very clear divide, but actually, whatever you want to call it, feeling, emotion, whatever that feeling is. I always link emotions to the inside out characters. Let me show you, I've got them here.
Yes.
Got the inside out characters. Here are my characters. But these are emotions. So when you don't know what the difference is, but regardless, I feel, I need. So I feel angry. I need, what do you need to not feel angry? I need some time on my own. I need to punch a pillow.
Scream into a pillow.
Okay, scream into, I was going to say punch someone's face. Don't punch anyone's face, but you might feel like it. You don't need to do that. This week, due to the hormone situation in my life, I have felt very, very low, very, very down. So what do I need to not feel? Well, actually, I don't want to change that because I know it's a moment in time and it will pass. So I just need to be on my own. So I just want to like almost hibernate inwards and just be left alone. I don't have the capacity to talk to anyone. So when you say I feel, whatever you feel I need, then it's not necessarily saying what can you do to make yourself feel happy. It's regulating yourself. It's being aware of what you're feeling and what you need to feel better, if that matters. Actually, the emotional regulation is just that I feel. It's just being aware of what you are feeling. In therapy, we look at it like the observer role. So what am I feeling? It's time to pause. So chaos is around you. It's all going a bit crazy. It's just seconds of just pausing and going, what am I feeling in this moment? If you're feeling angry, sad, happy, annoyed, frustrated, let down, disappointed, whatever you're feeling, that is what you're feeling. And to not judge it and not to try and get rid of it, but just to acknowledge that's what the feeling is. They will pass and they will come through and they will flow. This too shall pass. Where we start to worry in mental health is when it's not moving. So we're always looking for flow. We're always looking for those emotions to flow. You will see this all the time with teenagers, is that one minute they are in the depths of what you would think of depression, and you're already on the phone to me going, shit, Laura, they're in the depression. And then tomorrow, like nothing had happened. They don't know, yes, they happened. And then like off with their mates into town and you're like, huh? And that's what I'm working with teenagers, with adults, with parents most of the time. It's like, we're kind of like, well, they wanted to kill themselves yesterday and now they're going to town. Like, okay, I'll just sit here and not really know what I'm doing. And then they come back and they're angry. And then you're like, teenagers will move through these emotions really quickly. It's when they become quite stuck in them for a couple of days, if not a couple of weeks, then we need to be looking into it. So that long-winded explanation is what I would look at emotional regulation, is just being able to be aware. Just what you're saying is for people just to acknowledge what they're feeling and then what I need to do to get myself back into regulation. And you know what? When you're a teacher or a social worker or you're working in a service and you've had a really bad morning, it's about just being self-compassionate and being compassionate on your feelings, because you might want to just run away and not deal with the day, which would be ideal because that would regulate your system. But actually, you've got a class of 30 kids, you've got a caseload to go and see, we've got to go to court. What do you need to make your day okay? And even if it's a coffee, if it's looking forward to your lunch, having a nice evening plan, something that will just pull you through that day is enough to regulate your emotions, because it will give you something to look forward to. It's all about looking forward to something. Again, if it's not going on, that's why I really would urge parents to talk to myself or you, because somebody from the outside who doesn't know your family or doesn't know your world can come in and go, okay, we're going to start looking for those positive things, because there always will be. But when you're overwhelmed and when you're in it, it's really hard to see what it is that you're looking. I can hear a child screaming outside, which is my neighbour's kid, who is absolutely not regulated right now. No, I should pop out and say hello.
I was doing in my house. I was what? When? What?
No, they were having a little party earlier. With a lot of music playing. Child is not happy right now. Yeah, it's black. She about, I don't know though. I'm estimating about 2 or 3. Very unregulated. Bless her. I feel sorry for mum going off on the door to the mum.
Yeah, right. I say are unregulated because I don't know what they are. No. So one of the things that I talk about with kids that I work with is the knowing to refrain. So, and that's with the emotional regulation. So they have to name that emotion to be able to frame it in the right light. So like you were saying, I feel I need this. And it's like, for me, it's like to name that emotion. So I feel angry right now. And then to reframe it, what do I need not to be angry right now? So it's very similar with the 2 ways, but it's similar but different in a sense. And I think when it comes to neurodiversity, emotions are felt very differently. And a lot of the time, neurodivergent people, especially females, don't actually know what the feeling is because they don't understand what their emotions are. And that's not me being negative towards people. It's because we're not taught properly from a young age what emotions are. And it might be the same for neurotypical people, but I'm talking from a neurodiverse person. It's taken me a long time to actually be able to tune in to what my emotions are about, and what it is I'm feeling, and what it is I need in that moment. So being able to then name it and go, I'm feeling like this week I've got my masterclass. I've got so many things going on. So I'm anxious, I'm nervous, I'm excited. I've got all of them things going on for me. And when I put a post out on Facebook, people were talking about the anxiety side of it. And I think because I've spoken about anxiety quite a bit, people are always like, oh, she's anxious. It's like, go and try and fix it. And actually, that was me naming it. And then I was framing it. Okay, I'm feeling all these things. You know what? I know that I can do this. I know that I know my stuff. I know that I'm going to be able to bust this in the best way possible and give people service. But I just wanted to express that actually, even though I'm a professional, I still get these feelings. And it's how I deal with them that then sees me having either a good day or a bad day. Because again, neurodiversity, when it comes to emotional regulation, we tend to hold on to it. We can't slice through it as easy. And that's why like anxiety overlaps with neurodiversity a lot, is because then we're stuck in that moment, and then replaying it over and over and over, and not being able to come out of the trigger of what's caused it. And that's why understanding triggers is really important. And that's what I was saying about when you come away from it, and it's safe for you to do so, to actually process that emotion. Because if you don't then go and address what that emotion is in ways, and it could be as simple as really pissed off because someone said something that I don't like, and actually how can I deal with that? I can't change how they talk. I can't change what they do. I could say, I would really appreciate you not talking to me like that, because then I vocalize what it is for me, that if that's what's triggered me. But I can't then determine what they're going to do. So what can I do about that? What I can do about that is come away and I can write down like how I feel because of it. Or I could go and put some music on and dance it out. Or I could just have a word with myself. And I know it sounds really silly, but I could have a word with myself like, you know what? You can't control them, Naomi. Like, they're going to do what they're going to do. What you can control is your reaction to them. So in future, instead of allowing them to trigger you with that, is take a breath and know that it's not you, it's them. Just let them be and step away.
I was going to say that because that's exactly what I would do working with a parent, is to acknowledge that. But there's the bit there that we have to acknowledge, and this is where I find a lot of parents aren't we're working on, is their own confidence in their own ability and having their own self-worth and self-esteem. If you feel really good, not good, that's the wrong word. If you feel really strong in who you are and your place in the world, then that is really easy to go, right, it's not me, it's them. I can regulate myself. I just need some space away from that. When self-esteem, or we're looking for external validation, people pleasing, that'll be out the windows. Part of it then has to go back a step even further and just try and really understand where your self-belief is and your self-esteem and your ability to hold these emotions, in the ability to then move on with them. So this has gone really deep, this session.
It has. It's pretty right. And you're right, actually. But like, I'm looking at it from the perspective of where I am now. But where I was before I'd done all this, I would never have spoken up to myself. Like, I used to just let everybody walk all over me, regardless of how it made me feel, because I didn't want conflict and I didn't feel confident enough to speak my mind. And some people that know me might find that a bit shocking, because people see me as quite confident. But actually, I project confidence now, and I used to project confidence, but was not confident at all. Yeah. I was like so anxious underneath all the time. Whereas now I'm like, don't care. I'm me. Just
and that's the beauty of all this, which is why I've been able to start these little projects that be belittling, these huge, massive projects, is because the work's been done. So again, just to say to the parents out there, that we are all of a similar age, I imagine, that we're all in a certain generation that we were never taught emotions. Emotions were not a thing in the 80s. Well, they were, but we weren't taught about them. We weren't encouraged to talk about them. So we've got a whole generation now of messed up people who don't believe in themselves, don't believe that they can get through this time. And we've got our teenage generation that are coming through extremely confident, of them, and know exactly what they want to do. And I love that. I think that's great. Yeah. So we've got to be aware that there is I'm going to say millennial. I'll kind of just creep into the millennial world. Just I'm a 1980s babe, so I would call myself a millennial. But
I'm an 80s as well.
So I'm 1980. When are you?
81.
So I'm literally like 80 is, I'm at the end, I'm at December. I'm like, yes, I'm a
Oh,
millennial.
I'm January, so I'm not at the start.
We'll talk about actual birthdays where I give away my whole identity. But, how funny. So you've got this whole generation of us millennial guys who are very confused because the generation before us, our own parents didn't teach us about emotions because it wasn't talked about. We've now got a whole generation that we're bringing up that are very aware of their emotions and are able to verbalize them very well. So, and I just want to go back to a point you mentioned a little while ago, was about being able to, if you can't verbalize it, because that's actually a real big skill to have, especially if you're neurodivergent, is being able to name the feeling is something that I can work with people in the therapy room for years, is to be able to feel the emotion, because you absolutely, you're feeling now about your masterclass on Saturday. I can only say it from me because I don't know how your anxiety process. My stomach would be a washing machine.
Yeah.
And I'd be overthinking everything. Not in a negative way, but I just, I hope this happens. I'll be excited. Anxiety and excitement are exactly the same emotion. It's your brain telling you which one to feel, a little gem of information there. So it's like going on, if you were a performer and going on stage, you'd probably be really excited, but your brain's told you it's anxiety. So it's a mixture of real excitement, I imagine, getting on there, because you've got all this amazing stuff to give to your parents that are going to come onto your masterclass. It's like, that Christmas morning feeling. I wanted to
Exactly.
something excited. I
Exactly
wanted
how I
to
described it.
buzzing.
Like,
You'll be
I feel
buzzing.
like a kid at Christmas.
And that's excitement. And the anxiety of, well, for me, it would be technology, because anyone that's watching any of my stuff at the minute, it's not my forte. I'm learning. But yeah, I think there's so much stuff there, even out of what we've just been talking about today, Naomi, that again, I could just see like hundreds of podcasts coming out of this stuff, because every single one of those things we've just talked about, we started off talking about social workers. I've worked in education. We'll save that for another podcast, because there's a whole heap of stuff that goes on in the education system, which is exactly the same as social worker and well, teachers. We talked about I was in the support pastoral team, just had no time. Our caseload was a whole year group. And when you're trying to deal with so many issues going on there, and then parents phone up and just giving you all sorts of concerns. I was an educator welfare officer, but I was not there to find people. I was there to get experience. That's a whole other story for another day. But don't hate me because I was there an E-word. But yeah, there's so much stuff that I've got so much, and you've got so much to share with our parents. I just think it's gold what we've got. Quite nice to empty. It's like therapy in itself, isn't it? Just emptying our brains onto these podcasts.
It is, but it's also like we're making, not making, but we're sharing the real life stuff that's gone up and that's led us to where we are today. And like I say, if you had seen me 2 years ago, completely different person to what I am now. And that's because I've done the work. It's because I've put in, and I don't mean in the sense of like, I mean, it's hard. Come on, let's face it. Doing any work on yourself is hard because you have to face things that you probably don't want to face. But once you do that, it does make a difference, especially with neurodiversity, because your executive functioning skills are different. I don't like to say that you don't have executive functioning, because you do. You just process them very different. So when your executive functioning is processing things differently, your nervous system is processing. So it all becomes really entangled and really difficult for people to know their ass from their elbow, because you might be feeling, like you say, you might be feeling excited about something, but then your brain's telling you this is anxiety. When actually, like you said, anxiety and excitement are actually just an emotion, but they just,
Your brain tells you what you feel, and it's normally anxious because it's a familiar feeling.
yeah.
We can do so much stuff on that, and we can do little sessions on how to recognize your emotions and your feelings, little phrases that I teach people, which is what all the books and everything that I do in parentology is about, is teaching people these little nuggets of information to then pass on to their teenagers to help them emotionally regulate themselves.
Yeah.
So it's absolute gem. But like we said in the first episode, if anyone out there is wanting us to talk about a certain subject, or if we've touched upon something that you think that is really useful, then do let us know in the comments or get in touch with us, and we will cover it. We're going to be around for a long, long time. And
We've got a lot to say.
got a lot. We certainly do. We certainly do. But yeah, let us know if there's anything in here that we've touched upon that you want to know a bit more. And we'll put all our contact details in the footnotes or whatever you're meant to put on a podcast. I'm going to go and chat GPT how to run a podcast because I love the recordings.
Yeah.
How do we do it? But anyway, we will see you all in the next episode. And it's been so lovely to have this chat.
It has been amazing. Thank you so much, Laura.
Bye, everyone.